When you look back over the great stories of faith, bravery often sounds like thunder. It looks like giants falling, seas parting, mountains shaking. But sometimes, courage arrives quietly, like a whisper that refuses to die. Sometimes the bravest person in the room is the one who speaks only when the moment demands it, and waits in silence until the world is ready to listen. This is the story of Esther, an orphaned girl, raised by her cousin, tucked away in the shadows of exile. Nothing about her upbringing hinted at royalty. Nothing suggested destiny. But stories shaped by heaven rarely announce themselves early. They arrive through unlikely people, in impossible places, at the most fragile moments. Esther grew up in a land not her own. Persia was powerful, vast, and ornate, a place where golden courts and trembling commoners lived under the same sun. The king, Xerxes, ruled with a presence both imposing and unpredictable. Decisions made in a moment could change a life forever. And yet, through a string of events guided by a hand unseen, Esther found herself chosen as queen, not by ambition, not by desire, but by a path that seemed to choose her. She stepped into the palace with the softness of someone who understood how quickly life can turn. She was not loud. She did not command attention. She moved with the quiet grace of someone who understood the power of presence. And perhaps that is why she was chosen, not because she forced her way into history, but because she carried history with gentleness. But kingdoms are fragile things. Beneath the gold and velvet of Persia's courts lived men with darker intentions. Haman, a high official, carried pride like a weapon. For reasons rooted in old hatred and deeper arrogance, he despised the Jews. And when Mordecai, Esther's cousin, refused to bow before him, Haman's anger grew into a vow, one not just against Mordecai, but against an entire people. A decree went out. A date was set. A people marked for destruction. It is one thing to face danger when you know you have strength on your side. It is another to face it when you seem utterly alone. Esther did not hear the news in a council of leaders or a gathering of warriors. She heard it in the quiet, through a message from Mordecai, words that trembled with urgency. Do not think that because you are in the king's house, you alone will escape. Who knows whether you have come to your royal position for such a time as this? There are moments in life when a single sentence redraws the borders of who you thought you were. Mordecai wasn't telling Esther what to do. He was reminding her of something she had forgotten, that destiny often asks for courage before it gives assurance. Esther knew the danger. Approaching the king without being summoned meant death, unless he extended his golden scepter. Even queens were not spared. Her heartbeat must have echoed like drums in her chest as she considered the weight of the choice. To remain silent was safer for a while. To speak was to risk everything. But true courage isn't the absence of fear. It's the decision that something else matters more. Esther's answer was quiet but resolute. I will go to the king, and if I perish, I perish. These were not words of someone reckless. These were words of someone who understood purpose more deeply than fear. She fasted. She asked her people to fast with her. And in the stillness of those days, something within her shifted from trembling to trust, from hesitation to calling. When Esther entered the throne room, she did not storm in with fire. She walked with the dignity of someone who knew heaven was guiding her steps. The king looked at her not with suspicion, but with an unexpected warmth. The scepter extended, life granted, and a door, once closed, quietly opened. But Esther did not reveal everything at once. Wisdom doesn't rush. Courage doesn't panic. Instead, she invited the king and Haman to a banquet, a quiet setting, a calm table, a moment prepared with intention. At the first banquet, she said nothing. Timing is a language of its own. At the second banquet, the silence finally broke. With trembling honesty and steady eyes, she revealed the truth that she, the queen, belonged to the people Haman sought to destroy. That the decree was a death sentence, not for strangers, but for her. The king's rage turned on Haman. The plot crumbled. The danger reversed. The people spared. All because one woman chose to stand in the space between fear and calling. But Esther's story is not just about a queen in a palace. It is about every moment when you feel like your voice is too small, your presence too quiet, your influence too fragile to matter. It is about every time you wonder if now is the moment to speak or to wait, every time the world feels too loud and you feel too silent. Esther reminds us that silence is not weakness when it is chosen with purpose. That waiting is not cowardice when guided by wisdom. That courage can be as soft as a whisper, as gentle as a step forward, as simple as a voice saying, "This is the moment." Her bravery did not shake mountains. It shifted a kingdom. Her voice did not echo like thunder. It carried through halls and hearts until an entire people breathed again. We often think our lives need to be loud, to be meaningful. But perhaps heaven works most powerfully through those who act with quiet faith, through those who listen before they speak, through those who step forward even when their knees tremble, through those who understand that courage is not always seen, it is often felt, hidden, silent, but unstoppable. Esther didn't know how it would end. She didn't have assurance. She only had conviction. And sometimes, conviction is enough to change the world. So when your moment comes, when your voice quivers, when your heart trembles, when everything inside you whispers that speaking is too costly, remember a queen who stood not on strength, but on trust, who risked everything for what was right, who discovered that courage doesn't need an audience, it only needs purpose. History remembers Esther as a queen, but heaven remembers her as a woman who chose courage when silence felt safer, and purpose when fear felt louder. And now, as this story closes, I leave you with this final question, one Esther herself had to face. Would you risk everything for what's right? If this story moved you, let it linger. Let it remind you that even the quietest voice can carry the weight of deliverance. And as you continue your journey through ancient voices, let the next chapter guide you deeper into wisdom, deeper into purpose, deeper into the stories that shaped faith itself. Because your story is still being written, and courage, even when silent, is waiting to rise. If you wish to walk further with these ancient truths, stay a little longer, watch the next episode, join the journey, and let these timeless voices guide your steps. Your courage has a story too, and it's just beginning.